Namaskar. Good evening. Team Hingori Sutras welcomes you to this session of In Conversation with Neema Majmudar. He who perceives all beings as the self, for him, how can there be delusion of grief when he sees the oneness everywhere? He who perceives the self everywhere never shrinks from anything because through his consciousness or the higher consciousness, he feels united with all life. When a man sees divinity in all beings, how can he hate any living thing? With the realization of oneness, the sense of diversity vanishes and cause of misery is removed. That is what is explained in the Isha Upanishad. If we are not fully conscious of that which sustains our life, how can we live wisely and perform our duties? How can we see movable or immovable, good or bad as divine? How do we not divide a concept of the universe? For in dividing it, we tend to acquire only a fragment of the knowledge and in the bargain, limit ourselves. To help us understand and then to be able to practice seeing divinity everywhere, we have with us Neema Majmudar. Neema Majmudar has a unique combination of personal background, international exposure, education, and depth of spiritual knowledge, which makes her an inspiring writer and teacher of Indian philosophy. She has studied Indian philosophy with Swami Dayanand Saraswati, a well known contemporary teacher of Advaita Vedanta, non duality, in the tradition of Adi Shankaracharya. In addition to the traditional Vedic studies, Neema has number of years of experience as a professional with the United Nations in field of economics and social development in New York, Thailand, and Fiji. She also has a master's degree in international affairs from Columbia University, New York. Since 1999, Neema has been giving conferences, conducting seminars and retreats across the world in the domain of personal development and philosophy. The seminars and retreats she conducts with her husband, Surya Tahura, incorporate concepts of Indian philosophy with Western psychology, ethics, physics, neurobiology, and management. So, and from here, I would like to invite and welcome Neema Majmudar for our session today. A very warm welcome to you, Neema Majmudar. आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है.
Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you, Anjali, for a beautiful introduction. I would like to start with, of course, my topic is Isha Upanishad, but as you all saw that the little clip that you saw started with something about God particle. I'm not a physicist. I'm somebody who has studied Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita in detail. So what I would like to do today is just a little bit understand what exactly is this God particle and why is science interested in it. And very briefly, because as I told you, I'm not a physicist, right? So the scientists have been looking at the world and they are looking and they are fascinated with the world. They see the intricacies in how the galaxies are, how the solar system is, and everything is just so the universe is a marvel, right? And they look at the macro universe and they see the intricacies within intricacies. Then they dig a little bit deeper and they look that where their micro universe is, that's exactly where micro universe is, and that is what we call quantum physics, right? And the quantum physics, so that means that where the big object, big tangible object is, that's exactly where there is a micro world out there, quantum world, and they behave quite differently. So what do I mean by that? Right? So there is a wall, and everybody knows that nobody can walk through the wall because you will get hurt, right? But if you go at quantum level, what happens is that it's mostly space, and there are all these tiny particles which are running around. So there are two, in one place, there are two very different things. On one hand, tangible wall that you cannot penetrate, and on the other hand, mostly space with tiny particles, right? Similarly, in a tangible world, you cannot have one object at two places simultaneously. If it is occupying one place, then it can't be at the other place. But at a quantum level, you can see a particle at two places simultaneously. So this is why what scientists have been trying to do is to reconcile, because there are no two universes. It's not like one is a macro universe and then there is some other place where there is a micro universe. Where there is a tangible object, that's exactly where there is this micro world, and they don't behave identically. So they have been trying to reconcile the two. How is it possible? And they are trying to find what we call a God particle or a solution which reconciles the macro and micro world. Right. So this is where the whole research on the God particle, something where you fit the entire model of the universe. So this is their search, and they are very good at what they do. But today, what I'm here to tell you is what is our rishis, right, thousands of years ago, looked into divinity, so-called God, and let's see what they discovered. Okay. So the there is Isha Upanishad, which starts by saying Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Right? So that means there is divinity. Isha is everywhere. Now, for us, it cannot be a particle. Why can't it be a particle? Because any particle exists within time and space, right? So that means it's a one effect. It's one of the things in time and space, and therefore, and here, Isha, we are talking about as the cause of the universe. So the cause of the universe cannot be one of the tiny objects in the universe. It has to precede the universe, right? So this is why let's see what their vision of Ishvara is. Okay. So the inquiry starts with first, and Upanishads are very exploring in nature. So the first, even though the Upanishad starts saying that divinity is everywhere, but the first question is, why should I accept that? Why should I think that divinity is everywhere? First of all, why should I even accept that there is a cause to this universe? So this is where the first thing starts by saying that any effect, right? It's a logic. Says any effect requires a cause. You will never find in this universe any object which has come into being without the cause. So if this universe, which is time, space, and object universe, it has come, and it's a sophisticated universe, then definitely it must have a cause. Okay. Now, if so, that means logically you cannot postulate an effect coming into being without a cause. So therefore, there must be a cause. Now, the next question is, what is the nature of that cause? So in order to inquire into that, what they do is just look at any effect or any cause and see what kind of a cause is required in order to produce an effect. So um, there are two kinds of causes that you will see. Suppose you see a pot, right? I don't have a pot with me, but you can imagine a pot, right? So in order for the pot, which is an effect, to come into being, one must need a cause. And what are the two kinds of causes that a pot requires? The pot requires a pot maker, which in Sanskrit is called nimitta karana. And the pot maker also in turn requires clay to make the pot, which is called upadana karana. So for any effect to come into being, you need two different kinds of causes. First is nimitta karana, the maker, and the second is upadana karana, the material cause of the creation. Okay, so let's look at in the case of the whole universe, what could be the maker. So there, one more logic is given, and that's a very simple logic. And what is that? It says, Ghataha karta ghatagnaha. So what? Let's look at the pot. The pot maker. What does he require? He requires two things. He requires the knowledge to make the pot. Before he manifests the pot, he must have the knowledge. And the second is he must have the power. So there are two things which are required to bring, the cause must have in order to bring about the effect. What? The knowledge and power. Now, here we are not talking about a given thing. So therefore, ghatasya karta ghatagnaha. Sarvasya karta, the creator of everything. It must have sarvajnaha. Sarvajna means it must be all knowledge. It must have all knowledge because the entire time, space, and object universe is like Big Bang. It all has to come, and therefore it must have all knowledge to manifest the whole Jagat. Okay, and it also then have not only knowledge but power. Now, so therefore, the Ishvara or the divinity that we call, or the cause of the universe, it must have all knowledge and all power. This is what we logically arrive at. Now, the next question is, what material did this all knowledge and all power use in order to manifest the universe? Like the pot maker needed a clay, but in this case, right, when we are talking about the whole universe, it is not possible that there was already some material. Why? Because if there was already some material, what would be the case? That means material can only exist within time and space. So, what it means is if there was material, there was already time and space in that material. So, that means there was already a creation. If there was already a creation, how can you call this Ishvara, the cause, as the creator? So this is where what we have to understand is that in any other object, to create any other object, you can have maker and material as two separate causes. But in this case, in case of the whole universe, you can't have a material because every material is yet to come. So this is why this Ishvara, or the cause of the universe, is both the maker and the material cause of the universe. Wow. Anyway, you can say, so what? Okay, this is nice to know, but what does it mean? Well, what it means is something very significant. So the pot maker can be away from the pot, but whatever is the material, of that effect. So that means the clay can be ever be away from the pot? Clay can never be. Whatever is the material cause of that given effect can never be away from it. So that means this has a big implication. What is the implication? That if Ishvara, the cause of the universe, is both the maker and the material cause of the universe, it has to be wherever the effect, which is the universe, wherever it is. So therefore, you cannot have Ishvara as some entity who is other than you and away from you in time and space, because otherwise it will just become one object. It cannot, and the cause of the universe, being both maker and material, it has to pervade everything. Now, the next question is, if it pervades everything, then I should be able to see it. But why don't I see it? So this is where this all knowledge and all power is something which you is not given to you as an object for you to see, but it is given to you as a system which puts together all the different objects, right? So let's look at any given object in this universe, right? So you can see the sun, everybody sees the sun. So that we don't have any problem in seeing. But what there is a system which is solar system, which connects the sun to all the planets, including the Earth. Do you see that system? That system is intelligence. And what is that intelligence? Well, the Earth has a specific distance with reference to the sun, which makes life on Earth possible. And Earth rotates around its own axis, but also rotates around the sun. So that's what that system creates what? Day and night for us. It creates year for us. Why? Because when the Earth completes one rotation around the sun, then that is 1 year, right? Then you have seasons because of that. So this is what we call, you see the Earth and you see the sun, but this system which connects the Earth and the sun, not for 1 year, 2 years, millennia, that system is something which is not available for objectification. Similarly, we see an object, what? Tree, which is Earth, the sun is very far away. Let's come back to Earth. We see one object on our Earth, a tree. Now, tree, we think is one isolated object. It is part of our ecological system. What does it mean? Well, the tree is designed in a way that it not only takes energy from the sun, it also takes nutrients from the earth, and it produces all the nutrients for any living being to consume so that their body can sustain. And while doing that job, it also absorbs carbon dioxide from the air and gives out oxygen. Oxygen, everybody knows. Now, all of a sudden, everybody is talking about oxygen because oxygen is so much in demand nowadays, right? So, this is what we say, that there is a system out there that an object is known, but how it is connected to everything else is what we call, that is where the knowledge is, this is where the intelligence is, and this is where Ishvara is. So this is why it pervades everything as part of the system, but at the same time, what it's not available to us as an object. Now, the other thing that we do need to understand is that Ishvara is now, suppose you begin to see this present. Now, look at our own body. We all know, so we are, our body is equipped with an intelligence. What kind of an intelligence? Where any alien entity comes, nobody created this system. That system is something that we have inherited, and we have to learn to work with this system. So now, and any alien body comes, there is an immunity which recognizes an alien body, and it is capable of fighting. This is what we call your immunity system, and what at times it is successfully able to eliminate that alien body, and at times the alien body is more powerful, and this is what we call a disease sets in. Now, that disease can set in, but also what? Because it's the body itself is an intelligent system, so therefore you can have some antidote. So you have medicines which can then strengthen the body and make it capable of fighting those alien bodies. So this is why the intelligence that we are talking about is in two ways. One is all the laws and the system which governs our interaction with everything else. But now let's look at the objects themselves. Right? So the tree is connected to the whole ecological system. The sun is connected to the solar system. So all that. So but what about the object itself? The object itself, when I look at my body, that it's, I think that this body is something which I own. But what? There are trillions of cells in this body. Now, these trillions of cells, and they are also coming and going. It's not that whatever we are born with, those cells remain with us. The existing cells leave the body, the new cells come, and within that, the constant coming and going, there is an appearance of a stable body. Now, these cells combine together and create different organs. Now, those organs also, they begin to have specific function. And not only they have specific function, but they work in collaboration with all other organs so that the body works as one system, coherent system. So that means now we see the presence of intelligence in two ways. One, as what connects me as a human being to the sun, to the waters, to the mountains, to the plants, and that is there is a whole symbiosis, and that is Ishvara. But when I look at the body, which is connected to the rest of the world, that body itself is a very sophisticated system, internal system, physiological laws, where trillions of cells work in harmony to create organs. Organs work with each other for the body to perform its functions. So this is why, as the video said, that where is this intelligence? It is both inside and outside. It is everywhere. It pervades everything. Now, if that is the case, suppose I know that all that is here is intelligence, what difference does it make to my life? It's nice to know, it's nice to sit in the class and to think that, oh, wow, I'm pervaded by this all knowing intelligence. Well, there is one thing which is very beautiful because Upanishads are highly philosophical in nature, but there is a Vedic culture which is a popular culture, and that carries this information. You can't say this is just a classroom understanding. What difference does it make to me? What is this Vedic culture? Well, we look at the sun not as just bunch of hydrogen atoms, but we look at sun as manifestation of that intelligent design. And this is why there are so many of us. What I'm sure I have seen, I live by the beach and I see so many people, when the sun rises, they look up to the skies and they do namaskara to the sun, because they don't take the presence of sun for granted. I go to Rishikesh every December. I didn't go last year, but generally I go and to do a retreat. And not only people who study with me, simple villagers, uh, they also, about every morning they come to Ganga. And they don't just call Ganga as a river, they call Ganga as Maya, the mother. And what they do namaskara to Ganga. So this is where what it is not just a classroom philosophical understanding that Ishvara is both the maker and the material cause. And being the material cause, it pervades everything. It's not a given object, but it is the intelligence which connects one object to the other. And not only connects one object to the other, makes that very object what it is, because that itself is highly complex system. So everywhere you see, it is nothing but there is a presence of this intelligence. And suppose you begin to do that, right? Suppose you relate to the world like that. Your tree is not just a simple tree. What you see, there is this Vedic culture, whether it is lived or it is half lived with understanding, but you still see the manifestation. People put what? That little red thread around the tree, because now then they see it as manifestation of what it does is that life which seems to be lived in atoms and particles, how can that be so inspiring? But suppose life is lived amidst divinity. then your whole perception of life changes, because you have come to this life. This body is given to us. The brain, highly sophisticated brain, which is given to us for a length of time, and we need to make use of it. So it takes us from this feeling of isolation and feeling of not having much meaning. Very, very often people wonder, why am I just on this earth? And, I'm so busy doing things and I'll disappear one day. So now what is the point of it all? Well, the point of it all is that that isolated individual has to learn to see the presence of divinity. That is problem solving. That's a solving of the puzzle. Now, the next thing is, okay, I can see in beautiful things, in the sunsets and in the sunrises and in the waters of Ganga and, mountains and beautiful. I can see the divinity. I don't have much problem with that. Right? I mean, I feel inspired. It makes me feel calm. I feel connected. But suppose you want to look at the whole world, then if you're a little objective, then the world doesn't only consist of all the beautiful things. Right. So at the same time, when you see all this beauty, you see two kinds of issues everywhere. What are those issues? First, when you look at the world, it itself is afflicted with so many, there are natural disasters, then there are pandemics, then there are wars, there is violence, there is so many things which are going on in the world, right? So I'm born in 60s, and every year something or the other keeps coming. Now we think pandemic is the one, but just before I was born, the world fought two world wars. So that was not a very easy time, right? And then most of the countries were colonized. So there is something or the other. Then there was plague, and then every year there was something or the other. So you don't see all the beauty everywhere. So in 60s we had a war, I think, with some neighboring country. I have seen HIV/AIDS. Then I have seen economic crash of 2008. I have seen, in this Y2K problem. This, at the 2000 year. If imagine if all the computers stopped, what would be the case? And now you see a pandemic. So the world is full of, it's not just one thing. Then in between, all kinds of swine flu and all kinds of things keep coming. So where do you see divinity there? Now, along with all these challenges that you see in the world, you also look at your own life. And in that life also, there are so many things which happen, right? Starting from you don't get along with somebody in your family, to you didn't get admission in one college. This job that you have, you were so happy to have, but now your boss turned out to be quite a tyrant. So whether you look at the world at large, or you look at your own life, there are always challenges after challenges. So yes, in mountain and all, sun and moon and trees and all, it's wonderful to see the divinity. But how can I see divinity in all of these that I see, which confuses me, which scares me, which at times I'm totally overwhelmed by it. So here, what we do need to understand is the minute we depersonalize Ishvara. What is depersonalizing? The Ishvara is in form of knowledge and power. What does it mean? Intelligence, which is organizing the whole universe with all these, in form of all these different laws. So what are these laws? There is a law of gravity. If you look at the physical universe, there is a law of gravity. You look at the biological universe. There are all these species and how they come, how they multiply. There are laws. There are physiological laws, how your body works. There is psychological laws. If you go through certain situations, this is how you will feel. So we are surrounded by laws. And these laws are a manifestation of this intelligence. They are not just mechanical laws. Why? Because they all interact with each other and they combine with each other in order to produce an extremely complex universe. So this, if there are laws which govern, the intelligence governs the universe with all these intricate laws. What does it mean? It is impersonal, it is impartial, and it is non-failing. These are major implications. So this is why you cannot say, oh, somebody is angry with me. Why is somebody who is all loving and all kind and all, is punishing me, even though I'm a very good human being? So let me give you an example, right? Suppose I drop a given object, right? So, and the object is going to fall. Right? Now, whether it is this little cloth, the little napkin, or it is my very precious crystal, or it is my ring, whatever it is going to fall. Can you say the world is cruel because my something that I loved very much fell? No, because the laws of gravity cannot change to oblige us. Because if they keep changing to oblige us, then what? The sun will collide with the next planet. Because the same laws which govern a certain behavior within objects of the world, the same laws also govern the whole universe and the galaxies. So that means the minute you begin to understand that things need not always work my way, but when they don't work my way, it doesn't mean that world is unfair or it is random. So, how do we understand? So, how does that given understanding that the world is not random and it is intelligently put together everywhere you see nothing but this the intelligent design in form of laws which governs all the interactions? Then what happens is that suppose we have a problem, and what suppose we all know recently what the climate change has been talked about so much. So there is a whole ecological system. So now what we have to understand as a human being is the system cannot work to please us. We have to understand that system, and we have to be conscious of what we do. So if we mindlessly cut the forest and deforest everything, then the outcome is going to be the air pollution, then depletion in water levels, because the entire system is disturbed. Then global warming, then depletion of ozone layer. So that means our actions and when we act, we are acting not in isolation. And if we think that we are acting, if you think that you just have to do whatever is to your advantage and you do not think about the system, then over a period of time, you can't be the winner because the system is much bigger than any one human being or a group of human beings who think that they are very powerful. So this is how, when you begin to understand that this is not just the world that you are given for you to do whatever, to enjoy your pleasures and treat things in whichever way it is, because over a period of time, because you are the part of the system, you can't emerge as a winner. This is the laws. These are how the laws are. This is how the laws are. That is the first implication. Let's little bit look at, this pandemic, because everybody, is very obviously, affected by it, and it is very, from a human standpoint, you hear about people suffering, you feel very bad. There is no doubt about it. But and you can pray for everybody, and that is not. But right now, let's look at the system in which we exist, and can we disregard the system and emerge? Because this is one crisis, and many may come if we do not understand the nature of the world and act differently. This is why this is a good opportunity for us to relook at the nature of our actions and relook at the nature of the world. So I was reading in some a book where somebody has analyzed, that this whole very pandemic is a whole system. So what we human beings, it's not only that it has just come to us. There is some things that we have done, which is, which have kind of, whether they have caused it or not, I don't know. But there are some participation that we can't say that we are totally innocent in the things that happen to us. So they say that as we begin to deforest, then what happens is the distance between where we are and the wild animals, it begins to reduce because there are no more jungles anymore. So as they begin to reduce, the transmission of diseases from the wild animals to humans begins to be larger. Then we not only reduce the distance, but we domesticate these animals and we interfere with them. So what the minute you castrinate them, you interfere with their reproductive systems and all that. Then you have livestock industry. So you bring all these, you breed the animals, and then you inject hormones so that they become bigger, and then you inject antibiotics so that they don't get any diseases. So in that book, what I was reading is, as you inject antibiotics, what can happen is that the weaker viruses and bacteria can can be eliminated easily, but the more virulent ones survive, and those ones which survive, what they can get transferred to human beings. So this is how we have seen this is done through this particular pandemic is through bats, but we have seen earlier swine flus, bird flus, mad cow disease. So these are all something where a human being intervenes with intelligent system. The system is not punishing us, but what the causes you create, that whole starting point, right? You create a cause and then you expect that there are no consequences for that cause. It's not possible. Why? Because you are within this infallible, impersonal, intelligent system. So this is why we have to learn to recognize divinity everywhere. We have to recognize the interconnections everywhere. And we have to see our well-being in the well-being of others. This is called a wise person, according to Upanishads. It's not about being selfless or anything. It is that if you are within the system and if you're oblivious to that, and if you keep disturbing it and creating disharmony, and then you expect that you are the winner, well, bad luck. It's not possible. So it's high time that we recognize this divinity, not as some kind of all love and all that, but what an intelligent design, which is impartial. Now, that is a very big lesson of how we relate to the world when we see Ishvara everywhere. It's an intelligent thing. It's not a romantic idea. Oh, everybody is divinity, and therefore, let's love it all. That you can do that, but here it is a reality which you have to discern, and we have to change our actions and how we understand the world and how we act in it. Now, There is, let's look at little bit, individuals. You can say, okay, this larger things, it's true that we human beings have actually disrupted things, and we are in some ways receiving the effects of that. But what about individual lives? Right. So even this individual life, let's look at, you think most of the time our problem comes with the interaction with people, right? So we feel people, somebody is, not fair to you. We live like most of us, right? We feel we live like a victim. What is this victim? Victim feels that I am very good, but everybody else around me is not very sensitive, or at times quite cruel to me, and therefore I'm suffering now. And then it seems as though, and again we create further story. What is the story? That good people suffer, and the so-called little cunning and little over smart people, they always become the winner. So it seems to us as though the world doesn't have proper compensation systems. So the good suffer and the bad ones get away and they enjoy life. We create a picture like that. And if we create a picture like that, it's unfortunate because you can't trust the world. And if you cannot trust the world, then you can't basically, be comfortable living in there. So I will stop now in 5 minutes because I see that it's almost the time. So how do I understand divinity here? So what we do need to understand is that we are born. What is our natural program? Our natural program is that your human brain is born with what we call not only the system within us, where if there is any pain, suppose I get injured, then what my mind recognizes it, and I'll do something very quickly to take care of my pain. So that system is given to us, but we are not only given that with reference to ourselves, we are given mirror neurons. And what are these mirror neurons? Just as you can recognize your own pain, you can recognize the pain of others. So the mirror neurons make you appreciate that just as something is not comfortable for me, it is also not comfortable for others. And just how naturally you try to release yourself from whatever that discomfort is, the natural program is you will do the same for others. So this is what we call the intelligent design of Ishvara. So therefore, empathy is something which is given to us. It is inbuilt in human brain. Now, what do we do with this empathy? Well, we can do many things. Along with that, we are given the free will. We are given the natural program and we are given the free will. And what is that free will? Well, I can either act on that empathy and become compassionate and honor the natural program. I can tell myself, I'm too busy with my own life. Who has time to kind of, go out and help anybody? And you can abort this empathy. Through your own thinking, you don't give it an expression. And the third thing that you can do is that empathy program is far away. When you see somebody in pain, then you derive your pleasure from it. That means you have moved away from natural program through your own thinking. So this is why at times you see that some human beings don't act the natural program because their thinking has interfered. And why has their thinking interfered? Well, at times because of lots of other influences, right? Sometimes it's your own childhood and the pain in the past, where you were so pained that now that there is a whole, you understand the world in a slightly convoluted way. Sometimes it is the external people. You see how others behave, how society behaves, and you get influenced by that. So sometimes you get confused because your parents tell you something and do something else. So there are other influences which come and they confuse you. And this is why at times we don't behave in a way in keeping with our natural program. Now, but what is the good news? Because we are within the system, right? It's not like, oh, now we are not acting according properly and we've created this whole world. You can anytime recognize it and you can undo it. That is the beauty. Any emotion. This is what we call neuroplasticity. The minute you recognize that, hey, generally what happens, we are not even aware what's going on. The minute you recognize that I have some anger issues, or I have some sadness issue, or I have some fear issues, what, because you are within this intelligent system, the minute you take ownership, minute you take the responsibility for it, then you can find a way out and you can act and you can undo all of this. And that is a capability that is given to all of us. So this is why this natural design gives us lots and lots of opportunities. Now, what is the highest that you can do on this earth? The highest that you can do on this earth is not only act according to the natural program, but ask yourself one more question: that if divinity is everywhere, can it be away from me? It cannot be away from me. So that means I am one of the manifestations of divinity. That is at one level. And that will do wonders to your self esteem. Why? Because so many of us feel, oh, we are useless, I'm nobody, I'm like this, and we constantly criticize ourselves and we think of ourselves as very insignificant and inadequate and lacking. So this is this knowledge, what it tells you, that you are given this amazing body. You're given this amazing mind. And it's so sophisticated, it can solve most complex problems, one of the most complex problems in the world. And that is what? Recognizing divinity everywhere and seeing yourself as manifestation of that divinity. That can bless you and it can change the way you look at life, way you look at yourself, and you can live with freedom. And you can use all the talents and all the resources that are given to you in a win-win situation, because you connect your well-being with well-being of others, because we are all one manifestation of one divinity. So with this, because that Anjali told me that, so it's 8:50, so I will 9:50. So I will stop it here. And if there are any questions, I will take those questions.
Thank you, Neema. It was very well explained and a very insightful talk. And we do have a few questions here. The first question is, could you please explain divinity? Understanding divinity is what I see from here. The question is understanding it at the level of the mind and at the level of the Atma and the Jivatma.
How can I explain that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what he's asking is that sometimes we, when we're trying to understand divinity, we get stuck in a conscious mind, and that is sort of a block which does not allow us to connect with the true divinity within us, the Jivatma, right? So how do we break that barrier is what I think is the question.
Okay. So there are two things that, the Upanishads, because my topic here was seeing divinity everywhere. So I can't talk about the entire teaching of the Upanishad, because in 40 minutes, it's not easy to explain.
Absolutely, agreed.
Yeah. So, the Upanishads talk about two standpoints. One is, just let me give a simple example, right? A wave can look at itself just the way we look at ourselves, just as a wave, right? Individual. The wave has two other options. It can look upon itself as part of the ocean. So that is, this is what I have been explaining, that there is an intelligence, and that intelligence governs the sun, the moon, the solar systems, every system that exists, including this body system, everything. And therefore, you are one individual, which is part of this whole system, and you're given capacity to express yourself and live your life meaningfully. And within that, understand that what seems like an overwhelming world to you, an unfair world to you, a random world to you, you can actually begin to understand that it is pervaded by divinity. That is first option. The second is where Upanishads talk about is that ultimately the wave can go to one more level. And what is that other level? It can understand that yes, me, the individual wave, and the ocean, which is the total, is ultimately one reality, which is water. So water is simultaneously manifesting as ocean, the totality, as well as individual wave. So where is that? What is water equivalent? So you are this person who have limited intelligence and limited power. Ishvara is all knowledge and all power within which all the objects and all the systems are set. Now, both of them require one final irreducible reality, which is Sat Chit Ananda. So that is the final irreducible reality of everything. That even intelligence, which is constantly changing, requires one what awareness. Without awareness, there is no all intelligence, and that awareness is also our true nature. Just like the ocean has a truth in water, the wave also has its truth in water. So that awareness is that awareness which is always with us, and that is the truth of everything, right? Because of which you can see the world, because of which you can see your mind, because of which you can see your body. So that ultimately there is only one. So that is one more step.
Thank you. I think, yes, that really clarifies it for the audience. Thank you for very nicely explaining that. Neema ji, there's this one question here where it says that the concept of coexistence with the environment, and it being divinity or the consciousness has been explained. But I think our audience, this Akshay wants to know is, how did these definitions get created, or rather, how did, I think what he's trying to ask is, how was this concept of coexistence with the environment and the divinity all get created? Or so I'm not really sure, Akshay Kadam, if I understand your question, but I have tried to put it across as best understood. Yeah.
See, it's not about a concept getting created, right? What are the Upanishads doing? And the Upanishads are showing the system which is already there. Did we create this concept? Am I explaining certain concept of how the earth moves around the sun and how it creates the days and nights and years and seasons on earth and all that? I mean, it's already part of earth. And what we do as human beings is we understand it. So even scientists look into it, but they don't call it Ishvara. Why don't they call it Ishvara? Because the physicist only looks at the physical system. The biologist looks only at biological system, but they can spend years and years and years understanding the system. So what Upanishads show is that this system, which is an intelligent system, is divinity, and that is not a given object. It makes the objects, and it's not only that object is a very complex the object, but its interaction, it's so complex, and the entire thing is there is one intelligence. It throws light on something which is already there, but because it is not given to us as an object, we don't understand it. So it just shows us what is. It is not that we have created this concept.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for this explanation. And from here, we have another question saying, so in a nutshell, we are all a part of the same grand plan.
Yes, absolutely.
Then where
Grand
does
order.
destiny fit here?
Okay. Okay, great. So now the grand plan is an amazing plan. It's, as I told you, it's impersonal, it's impartial. There is no one God sitting there and telling, oh, you've done something wrong, so oh, you need to be punished. There is no such thing, right? The minute you create a cause, it would produce an effect. So we are in what we call a changing, constantly moving universe, right? So now it's in a constant flux. And the flux is in terms of, as I told you, cause and effect relationships. So suppose you find yourself at this point, right, in time. Now, is this point in time not connected to the past? It is connected. It is very intricately connected to the past. So we call it destiny, right? But what we need to refine it a little bit, because we think that it's all fixed. But in reality, the whole world is in a constant flux. So that means that the past causes come into play to make today. But what you do today, you have a free will, and what you do today, you can change the trajectory of your life. So this is why tremendous power is given to a human being to shape its own life, and not only shape your own life, but shape the world, because the world is also in a constant flux. So this is why what the world is going to be 100 years from now, even Ishvara doesn't know. Why? Because it only puts together the causes and effects intelligently. What causes we are going to collapse, we don't know. And depending upon the causes that we collapse, not only we shape our own lives, but we shape the collective life of everybody. So we are given that power to shape the trajectory of our life and the world. So that's a power. If you over talk about destiny, what happens is at times you become a little passive and think everything is happening to me because of my past. Must have done something wrong, and that takes away this whole beauty and ownership of your life that you are given, and capacity to take it forward that you are given. So yes, the cause and effect the relationship is at work. So at any given point in time, there are past causes that you cannot totally eliminate, but you are given the free will to create new causes and then change the direction for you and for the world. And so this is the power given. So, and the minute you change your course, what the intelligence will change it for you, because it doesn't have any agenda, right? It will just flow.
Right. Yeah. With this, there is another bit of, I think, confusion here in some of the minds here. Is that what is the difference? Is there, or rather, is there a difference between the Atma and the soul, the Brahma and the self? Or are these the same? Because, like you said, if we are the awareness, but you also said that we are the pure consciousness. So exactly what are we?
Yeah. So awareness is so in Sanskrit there is what we call chit. So you can look at in let me use Sanskrit. Maybe it is much easier, right? So there are words. What are these words? One is your physical body. So for you, Atma is I, right? So most of us think that our I is in the physical body. But physical body, what Upanishads say is Sthula Sharira. Sthula Sharira is made up of 5 elements, right? Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi. Air, space, water, earth, and fire, right? So this is Sthula Sharira. Now you have one more body. It is called Sukshma Sharira. What is Sukshma Sharira? Sukshma Sharira is not only you have this physical body, you not only have physical eye, you have something called sight, which is subtle. You not only you have physical ears, but you have hearing capacity, which is subtle. So this is why when I look at your physical ear, I can't see whether you can hear or how much you can hear. And when I see your physical eye, I can't know how much you see. Then there is something called physical brain, and there is what we call the mind, which is subtle. So that is what we call Sukshma Sharira. So you have physical body, you have Sukshma Sharira, then you have Karana Sharira. That is what we call causal body. What is this causal body? Why have you come with this given physical and subtle body? And why I have come with this unique physical and subtle body? So that is what we call the causal body, Karana Sharira. And that is what we say. We have many, accumulated karmas over lifetime, and one particular set of karma give us this physical and subtle body. So that is called Karana Sharira. Now, the person who keeps going from so when the physical and subtle body come and go, the Karana Sharira remains, right? Because all our karma and our karma will give us different bodies. So this is what we call transmigration, right? So you call samsara, you call reincarnation, whatever. So we keep going from one body to the other, and this entity, which keeps shifting from one body to the other, and also some karmas get exhausted, new karmas come, is called jiva. And that goes on and on and on until in one lifetime, this particular jiva in one given body and mind recognizes that, A, all these are constantly changing. My real nature is that of Sat Chit Ananda. That is my real nature. Otherwise, Atma, I, gets mixed up with physical body, subtle body, causal body, or a transmigrating entity. And only when you recognize that it is one with divinity, it is one with Ishvara, then there is moksha. So your life journey is about finding out your true nature and moving from this variable entity, which is just coming and going, and it is nothing but coming together of five elements to your real nature, which is one with divinity. So that is what we call moksha.
Right. And for the last question, Neemaji, of the evening is, can you help us understand how can we find divinity in ourselves?
Yeah. So this is where where your body is right now. Suppose I ask you, did you create the cells? Did you create those
No.
cells and combine them in a way that there is organ? Did you create
No.
your brain, all these neurons, and did you create the chemicals and electrical connections and the possibilities within the
No.
brain? No. So that is what we call
None of it.
divinity. Do you understand? That is divinity. Don't look for some, that is the intelligent design where everything is so intricately put together and it gives you possibility of life.
Right.
The
So
mirror
simply
neurons.
put.
Yeah, mirror neurons, which gives you
Absolutely.
empathy. So don't look for some other light or anything. The whole body is pervaded by intelligence. And this is, I want to say one thing. I don't know, some of you, I don't know what kind of audience, but uh, there is a beautiful bhajan in, it says Darashana do ghanashama nath mori akhiyan pyasi re. So mandira mandira murat teri fir bina dikhe surat teri. Mandira is not a temple. In every body you are present, but I don't see you. Why? Because I see only bones and I see, but I don't see the intelligence which puts together everything. Yuga bitena I milanaki puranamasi. Yugas have gone. And because I try to think of you as an object and I cannot find you. And I miss the fact that you are the intelligence which makes every object what it is and connects it to everything else. So that's where you are. And when Dwaradayaga Jabatu Khole, when you give your blessing to me, then I begin to re-look at the world, re-examine the world, then what? Panchama surame gunga bole. Any vulnerability that you have, any defects that you have, the minute you pay attention to it, as I told you, right? All the pain it gives you, you have a beautiful design, which is where you are a noble human being because you have mirror neurons, you are empathetic, the compassion will come naturally, you don't even have to work for it. If you remove all these different wrong thinking, then it's everywhere. All you have to do is to remove ignorance. And the minute you start initiating this process of removing ignorance, then what? Pohoche kashire. Every little difficulty, you will get grace and you will come to know the presence of divinity everywhere and your identity with that divinity. So, this is what the whole life is about, right? Where you see a scary world, a meaningless world, insignificant you have to see that you are the whole and Ishvara is everywhere.
Hmm. Very well explained, Nimaji. But there is, there's this temptation of one more question that's come in.
Yes.
And,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're okay with it. So it says, why does Ishvara make us be born as a jeev if the ultimate goal is to go back to where we were before?
Yeah. So it's true. Well, this is how Ishvara, as I tell you, right? Ishvara, you can ask this question if you think that Ishvara is one person who has decided to fool us and created this world. But as I just told you, Ishvara is not a person. It is this intelligence which manifests as this whole universe. And when it manifests, it is true that the design is that every individual comes with an ignorance. We don't know ignorance about two things. We don't know who we are, and we also don't know what the nature of the world is. But we are very well equipped to know the nature of the world. We have created brilliant schools, right? Excellent universities to know the nature of the world. So we want to send our kids to the best schools so that they have best education. But what happens is in all our life, the time goes in getting to know the world, and what remains a secret is our true nature. So that both possibilities are given to a human being. It is up to us what we choose. And they too are not mutually exclusive. It's not like if you want to know yourself, you have to give up the world. You can stay in the world, but you can ask this question. And because this divinity is everywhere, if you expose yourself to the right teaching, you can find out. So life is a possibility, and possibility comes with knowing, and knowing external world and knowing yourself. And you have to choose what you want to know. But divinity is like that; it manifests with possibilities, and everything is given. And what you do is entirely up to you.
With this, we would like to thank you very, very much for a very enlightening session, Nimaji. Thank you so much for coming on our session today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope it was useful, and I hope it changes the way you look at the world. Thank you.
Thank you, dear audience. It was a pleasure having you today. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Khuda Hafiz. Good night. Sayonara. See you next Sunday.